Do not read this aloud. The whisper comes from no one, yet you hear it clearly. You are alone in the wind-scoured vault of what remains of Nippur, fingers trembling as they brush away the millennia-thick dust of empires long buried. The dim air is stale with ancient breath, and yet it stirs, reacting to you, as if the walls remember what you are about to do. You kneel beneath a crumbling arch etched in cuneiform script, so weathered it bleeds into stone. Time has gnawed these glyphs into ghost speech. They warn of a name, not a god, but the consequence of divinity. Your torch flickers. The clay tablet before you is unlike the others, unmarked by catalog, unsorted by the modern hands that desecrated these ruins in the name of history. Its surface pulses faintly beneath the soot. Someone long ago lacquered it with bitumen and blood, sealing it shut with symbols that are neither Sumerian nor Akkadian. Something older. You feel the script more than read it. A name emerges from the silence. Marduk. Not a name, truly, but a sentence, a verdict, a blade in the shape of a god. They say Marduk rose as the champion of the younger gods, born not from the womb of time, but from conflict itself, born to kill, born to order, born to bury. But before there was order, there was something else, chaos, and chaos had a name too. The cold beneath your knees deepens. Behind your eyes, visions begin, not of history, but of memory, not your own. You see temples before stone, rituals before language, bones burned into the ground and arranged into the first altar. You hear the name Tiamat, but not spoken, growled. It is an oceanic sound, a sound that drowns. From behind you, you feel the presence of ink-stained parchment, though there is none. You must not continue. And yet you must. As your hands curl around the forbidden tablet, your breath catches. The clay is warm. Something inside the tablet writhes, not literally, but with a language that is still breathing. On its edge, scratched hastily by a trembling hand millennia ago, is a warning in Old Babylonian. The god who killed chaos must not be remembered, or he will awaken to kill again. You don't believe in curses, but you do believe in history. You've studied the myth of Marduk as passed down through Enuma Elish, the Babylonian creation epic, where he slays Tiamat and crafts the heavens from her ribcage. You've seen the name sanitized, mythologized, reduced to syllabus. But this is not that god, this tablet, this whisper, this dream. This is not Marduk the creator. This is Marduk the executioner, the god who murdered what was before gods, and the consequences of that act have not ended. The air thickens as you trace the first line of text, and the tablet begins to warm further. Not dangerously, intimately, like it remembers your skin, like it waited for you specifically. Then you notice the candle on your left burns upward. The flame flows against gravity, drawn toward the glyphs. A soft hum, like bees drowned in honey, trickles from the cracks in the wall. You have begun reading without knowing it. A line whispers into your mind. To name him is to divide the sky. Another, to summon him is to bury the sea. And the third, to remember him is to forget all else. You close your eyes. The world turns, slightly off its axis. Time becomes water, and your place in it. A ripple that loops endlessly toward the first crime of the cosmos. Somewhere far from here, a sleeping ziggurat stirs. Somewhere nearer, your shadow sharpens. Your whisper joins the others now, acolytes, madmen, scribes with eyes burned blind from inner light. Welcome, listener, or should I say, archivist. This is not a story. It is an unburial, and the god we exhumed tonight was not lost by accident. He was buried by terror. Now, let us turn the first page. You do not walk. You drift, drawn by memory stitched into clay and salted breath. Beneath your skin, something primordial begins to pulse. Not fear, not knowledge, but recognition. Your blood stirs as if its iron remembers a debt unpaid. You see her now, Tiamat, not a creature, not merely a name from the Enuma Elish. She is not the dragon of children's myth. She is a womb of entropy, a sea without floor or shore, a mother of monsters who loved too much and birthed too many. They called her Chaos, but only after they betrayed her. In the oldest version, never told in temples, only murmured in heretics' teeth, Tiamat was not the villain. She was the ocean in which all things floated. Not evil, but unbounded. No form, and therefore no sin. She loved the elder gods into being, and when her mate Apsu was slain by their children, her scream split the fabric of silence, and from that scream, the sky. The scribes later dressed Marduk as a savior, but those who knelt in the deeper sanctums knew he was no savior. He was a weapon forged in fear. His birth was not from divine lineage. It was artificial, crafted, summoned, made not to live, but to kill. When the gods could not control what they had awoken, they turned to a new kind of force, divine calculation. Marduk. He did not fight Tiamat alone. He was given tools, some say the winds, others say a net woven from lies, and a weapon that was not steel but sound, something like a word or a formula, a tone that unraveled eternity. When Marduk faced her, she did not roar, she did not attack, she wept. The god scribes erased this from the texts, but one damaged tablet from the city of Dait Sipper locked away in the Vatican's shadow archives records an alternate line. He pierced the heart of his own mother. You whisper the line aloud, the wind halts. A drop of water touches your palm, from above, though there are no ceilings here, no rain. You look up. There is only dust. Another drop. Red. The blood of Tiamat, some say, was used to mark the first covenant of borders. From her corpse, Marduk cut the heavens and the underworld, two halves of her body suspended in permanent tension. The earth, a scab across her stomach. The rivers of Mesopotamia were once said to be her veins, and now they dry. But one river remains, the hidden one. The priests of the destroyed temple at Eshnunna spoke of a third river, invisible to the eye. It flowed only through time, under the feet of those who remembered. They called it Ilu Damu, the Godblood River. It whispered her grief, it offered visions. It could be reached only through a dream fast of 9 nights beneath the moonless sky. You wonder now if your presence here, this descent into forgotten script and melted cosmology, is not that ritual itself. If the hunger inside you is no longer yours. And then comes the whisper again, not in Sumerian, in something before. He did not slay chaos. He buried it in the sky and built his throne upon the wound. Scholars debate the real meaning of Marduk's victory. Was it metaphysical? Political? Allegorical? But no academic consensus answers the most troubling question. Why was chaos never eradicated? Why does it return, in flood, in plague, in collapse? The forbidden theory is this, that Tiamat was not destroyed, but dismembered across dimensions. That each storm, each war, each crack in the human soul is her rebirth in pieces. And Marduk? Marduk still stands guard, not to protect us, but to keep her from reforming. You taste salt, not metaphorically. The air itself thickens, brine and ash and copper. Somewhere a conch horn sounds low and long, yet there is no musician. Your left hand trembles and a glyph glows faintly on the tablet still cradled against your chest. You read it. You shouldn't. Sha Tiamat la Ilu. He who bled the goddess is not God. Your vision fractures like polished obsidian dropped on marble. The walls of the ruin tilt not outward but inward like a swallowed breath. You have stepped across something, a threshold, a mouth, a scar. And below the scar, a name waits, half buried in teeth and stars. You wake, if this can be called waking, with dry breath and cracked skin, the scent of clay and ozone burning at the edge of your mind. Time moves strangely here. Your thoughts echo twice before they settle. Your hand is still clutching the tablet. But now beside it lies something else. A thin bronze amulet curled and split, as though lightning had struck it from within. Its edges are lined with inscriptions so fine they escape the eye but not the mind. You feel them before you read them. 50 names, 50 fragments of Marduk's power, 50 layers of his mask. You've heard of them in hushed corners of libraries, in the uncatalogued footnotes of Assyriologists who died in silence. The Enuma Elish grants Marduk 50 titles after his slaying of Tiamat, each name a function, a rule, a domain. But this amulet lists them backwards, not as ascent, but descent, from king to shadow, from architect to void. The first name, inverted, glows faintly on the edge of your awareness. Namru, the Shining One. But here it reads, Urman, the extinguished flame. The second, Asaru, knower of all things. But now, Urasa, the forgetter, the silencer of tongues. Each reverse title feels like a wound reopened, not removal of power, but reversal of it. And when your eye reaches the 13th, the bronze sizzles in your hand. Tutu, the restorer, now reads, Utut, the desecrator of order. You drop the amulet, but it clings to your palm, as if magnetized to flesh. Not magnetism, devotion. The names do not rest in bronze. They inhabit. Each one was a divine personality, a mask worn and discarded but never fully removed. Whispered texts from a lost Ashurbanipal scroll claimed that the 50 names were not awards, but bindings, shackles. For each name spoken aloud, Marduk was fractured, divided, into aspects so he could be worshipped in pieces, and never again as a whole. But what if someone tried to reverse that? There is one forbidden ritual, known in scattered fragments across the clay archives of Nineveh, said to restore the original. Name the core name, not Marduk, not Bel, not Asarluhi, but the first name, the name only Tiamat knew. The ritual was never completed, because of its cost. It demanded the reversal of the 50 names in a living voice, but no tongue could speak them all backward and live. The final practitioner, a temple boy named Ikura, spoke the 33rd reversed name before collapsing into wordless death. His body was burned by decree, his ashes sealed in a jar carved with an image of a dragon devouring its own tail. No one dares name the full reverse chain again. But this amulet whispers, you might be the one who could. You hear nothing, but suddenly realize you've been mouthing the names, softly, one by one. A rhythm beneath the breath, like a litany remembered. In dream, the ground pulses, a shadow behind your shoulder shifts, and yet your own shadow does not move. A theological paradox lurks beneath all this. Are names divine because the gods wore them? Or did the gods arise because the names existed? If the latter, then Marduk is not a being. He is a structure, a syntax of conquest. And Tiamat, she was before naming. To name is to kill chaos. To unname is to invite it back. A glyph on the edge of the tablet glows crimson now. Not fiery, but wounded. It reads, Shum Marduk Balatu. To name Marduk is to survive, but someone has etched a final stroke below it. Balatu La, to. Name Marduk is not to survive. The contradiction stings your tongue. In the ruins you feel watched, not by presence, but by the names themselves, as if language is no longer a tool, but an observer, a hungry one. Then, a faint scent. Burned, myrrh and crushed bone, a smell no living temple dares evoke. You are not alone, not yet possessed, but heard. The 50th name murmurs on the wind. Bel, Lord. But here, reversed. Leb, heart removed, a pulse erupts in your chest. You bleed, no wound, just the echo of one. The reversed names begin again in your throat. You do not command them. They command you. And you realize, the God who killed chaos may not be done killing. The dust shivers as you breathe. You have descended into a lower vault now. Stone walls soot-stained and cracked, their mortar smeared with old resin, their silence thick with heat long extinguished. It feels as if you have stepped inside the chest of a giant who once breathed fire and memory. At the far end of the hall stands a black altar, not polished, not sacred, but scorched. Not with candle or incense, but with something hotter, something that once called down sky fire. There are markings here you've never seen in any lexicon, not Akkadian, not Sumerian, not even pictographic. These are spirals etched into bone dust and sealed with the blood of reflection, not the blood of animals, not of man. The rite recorded here is known in hidden orders as the sky furnace ritual, a sun invocation once practiced in secret by the ash priests of Dur-Kurigalzu. No inscriptions remain in temples. Only 2 references survive, one on a forbidden page in the Chronicles of Uruk's eclipse and the other here, beneath your trembling fingers. The ritual was not designed to summon light. It was to consume shadow. They believed that Marduk had 2 aspects, enlightener and scorcher. One made worlds from chaos, the other erased memory from flesh. It was this second form that the sky furnace fed. The fire needed for the ritual was not physical. It came from above. Not the sun exactly, but the space behind the sun, a realm they called Shapash Zakaru, the brightening that devours. To open it, the priest stood upon a high ziggurat and chanted backward the liturgy of the 8th month. But the key was not in sound, it was in shadow. They offered silhouettes instead of bodies. They would light a great pyre, not to burn anything, but to cast immense shadows behind the gathered acolytes. Those shadows, once elongated beyond a certain threshold, would tremble, then vanish. The bodies remained, but their souls, if such a word fits here, did not. The vanished ones were never named again. One eyewitness, an outcast scribe named Bel-Lu-U, recorded this horror in a single line scrawled onto the back of a broken prayer tablet. The light from behind the sun knows your shape, not your name. What did the ritual do? No one knows for certain. Some scholars claim it was a failed attempt to renew Marduk's flame aspect. Others believe it was a test, a measure of loyalty for priests too close to the inner fire. But the forbidden belief is this, that the sky furnace was not designed to feed Marduk, but to keep him asleep. Every few generations, when chaos stirred, too loudly when the name Tiamat crept back into dreams and thunder, the ritual was performed to remind the fire why it should not awaken. You run your hand over a charred mural. A dragon, Mushoshshu, arches across the top, spewing no flame but silence. Below it, acolytes kneel faceless before a disk of blackened gold, its rays inverted. Not radiating outward, but collapsing inward. A theological mystery lingers in the heart of this rite. Can a god be weakened by memory? Was this why the shadows were offered, not to worship, but to forget? If Marduk's power is rooted in the victory over chaos, then remembering Tiamat, grieving her even, might unweave the foundation of his throne. This may explain why the ash priests vanished. Not slaughtered, erased, no records, no bones. Only scorched stone and the occasional glyph left behind by accident or mercy. You step closer to the black altar, and for the first time, it breathes. Not a wind, not a voice. A heatless exhalation. It touches your skin like memory, soft, aching, and not your own. You close your eyes. For a heartbeat, you stand atop the ziggurat yourself, shadow cast long by the fire, your soul stretching behind you like a second self. The chant begins, not with words but with names, names you've spoken before. But now they respond. You feel yourself duplicated, split, then snapped back. The vision vanishes. You are still in the vault, kneeling. But your shadow, it does not move with you. You stare. It delays, then follows like an actor late to the cue. You whisper Marduk's name. The shadow ripples. You may have accidentally opened a sliver of the furnace. Or perhaps the furnace opened you. The temperature plummets. Somewhere behind your teeth a spark glows, a word not yet spoken, waiting to become flame. And above you, beyond the sky, something listens. You descend again, lower than you thought the temple ruins extended. The air is colder here, and yet dry as desert parchment. Every breath you take feels powdered, sifted through bone. You pass beneath a collapsed arch where ash clings to the stone as if it never cooled. It hasn't. This is where they lived. Or, rather, where they ceased. The ash drinkers, a priesthood so secret their existence survives only in contradiction. Their name is found in a banned footnote of the Assyrian demonological register, buried under a misclassified entry. Unauthorized. Crematory sec active c. 1100 BCE. But none of their bones have been found. None of their robes. Only the ash. Fine, volcanic in texture, always warm to the touch, always forming shapes that resemble tongues or fingers even when undisturbed. They were Marduk's last flame-bearers, but they did not light lamps or carry incense. They consumed what remained of his fire. According to an apocryphal prayer tablet held in the Black Archives beneath Istanbul, the ash drinkers believed that Marduk no longer existed as a being, only as a residue. A spiritual sediment found in places where destruction had already happened. They wandered ruins, burnt cities, fallen towers, the aftermath of wrath, and in each they gathered ash, not to study, not to scatter, to drink. Their rituals remain heretical in every known temple. Code. They would mix sacred ash with the oil of black olives and honey, whisper Marduk's reversed names over the mixture, and consume it under moonless skies. Why? Because they claimed it reconnected them to the moment he slayed Tiamat. Not symbolically, not mythically, directly. Each ingestion was a communion with the divine trauma. They relived it, not as observers, but as participants, screaming her death, feeling his blade, tearing the sky. Those who survived the rite reported visions of burning trees that wept gold, of stars bleeding backward, of a mouth in the sky that spoke their name but never closed. Eventually, their minds snapped. But one scroll, shrouded in mold and madness, claims a darker truth. The ash drinkers became ash not from fire but from too much memory. The ashes here begin to move, not from wind. There is none. The ground itself seems to remember footsteps. The ash flows in currents that mimic breath. A line forms before your feet, drawn by unseen hand. The fire you swallow will not warm you. Another theological mystery rises. What if divinity, once fragmented, becomes toxic in the flesh? The ash drinkers believed that the divine cannot be housed safely in the human form, that it burns backward, eating not the body but the soul sequence. They had a name for this process: reverse apotheosis. A fall from God, not into one. And you, now walking this hall, breathing this bitter dust, are beginning to feel lighter, not in peace, in absence. Your memories blur. You try to recall your own face, your age, your voice, and find static. Are you one of them? Were you always? A single ceramic jar sits at the center of this chamber, unbroken. Ash seals the rim. Upon its surface, a single symbol remains legible, a dragon's tail coiled into its mouth, but inverted. The tail is inside the jaws, forcing them shut. You lift the jar. It hums, not from inside, from within you. Your fingertips tingle, not with energy, but with recollection. You feel a memory that never belonged to you, of standing atop the ruins of Babylon, letting ash fall through your fingers, whispering a name you swore never to speak again. You have said it once already, Marduk. And now something ancient within the jar recognizes you. A final line forms in the ash at your feet. The ash remembers what the fire regrets. You should leave. You should burn your clothes. You should forget. But forgetting is no longer in your possession. The priesthood died of knowing too much. And you are beginning to remember. There is a rhythm beneath your feet now, not footfall, not heartbeat. A rumble, like a memory trying to dig its way out of stone. You are not in Nippur anymore. The map you brought is worthless. The air has changed, denser, saltier, and laced with iron. You descended through a crack behind the ash drinkers' hall, yet when you emerged, the walls around you hum with water pressure. You are underground, but it smells like ocean, and before you, carved into a basalt arch, is a name that should not be known. Eridu. But not the Eridu of textbooks, not the city of Enki, the water, God, not the cradle of kingship, long buried under centuries of sand. This is the other Eridu, the one that scholars whisper about, then redact, the city beneath the city. There are no streets here, only veins, channels that pulse with brine, guided by walls smoother than any Mesopotamian chisel could carve. Symbols line the stone, glowing not with paint, but memory. They shift when you look too long, reforming into names that resemble stars more than words. You know this place was never meant to be found, and yet someone did. A forgotten archaeologist named Ephraim Talbeth, last seen in 1936, before vanishing into a sinkhole during an excavation near the Euphrates Delta. His final notebook page, recovered from a half-flooded tent, read, "The city is not lost. It waits beneath the skin of the others. Marduk's first throne was never in Babylon. He was crowned in Eridu beneath." The implication was heresy. If true, then the myth of Marduk's Babylonian rise was a mask, a theological forgery. His true origin lay below the sanctioned cities, in a place never consecrated, never mourned, a place of exile, not empire. The forbidden belief is this, that Marduk was not merely born to defeat Tiamat. He was built, constructed, his form forged not in heaven, but in a vault beneath this black city. A divine weapon prototype, tested against chaos before theology ever wrote his story. Here the corridors throb with that legacy. You walk among cracked obsidian pillars, and as your torch passes, reflections twitch, one heartbeat behind your motion. The walls do not echo your steps, they absorb them. The city beneath Eridu was not meant for humans. It was meant for observation. There are no altars, no idols, only a central chamber, vast and oval, its ceiling curved like the inside of an egg. You stand now within it. The air is cold but buzzing. It feels like standing in a paused thunderclap, and at the center, suspended in midair, is a mirror. Perfectly circular, framed in a metal that resists description, not gold, not bronze, more like coagulated light. It shows your reflection, but not now. It shows before. Your face, younger, wiser, hollowed by choices you don't recall making. You who might have once whispered too many names aloud. And beneath that mirror is a sigil, curved like a serpent swallowing its future. Tiamatu Shaplu, Tiamat beneath. Another mystery, another break in doctrine. If Marduk built the sky from Tiamat's corpse, what remained? Where was the rest of her? Was she burned, scattered, or was she buried? Some apocryphal writings suggest a terrifying possibility, that the chaos he couldn't kill was sealed here, beneath the throne of his first sanctuary. Not out of mercy, but fear, because gods, even victorious ones, fear memory, and cities, even buried ones, remember. You approach the mirror. It begins to ripple. Not your reflection, the glass itself. The surface warps and smooths as if responding to your breath. A voice, yours but not, whispers. He was not made to rule. He was made to destroy her. But what is a god without his monster? Suddenly you understand. The mirror was not built to show you. It was built to show him, Marduk, the god who had to see what he had done over and over to ensure he did not become what he destroyed. But he did. And the mirror no longer reflects repentance, only recursion. The memory of victory is its own curse. You reach forward. Your fingertips graze the surface. A flash. Salt. Fire. Claws. A scream without air. A crown falling into a pit. That was not a pit. You fall back. The mirror stills. And somewhere in the city of Eridu beneath, something shifts in response. A stone turns. A breath escapes. A waiting ends. Your descent halts at a corridor of silence so absolute it hums. Stone gives way to wax, wax to flesh, and then you find it. Not in a vault, not in a shrine, just resting atop a basalt plinth slick with condensation and the scent of long-dried ink. A book, but not one you've ever seen in any collection. This is not the Enuma Elish you've studied, not the creation epic etched in clay tablets, divided into 7 columns, cataloged and sanitized by scholars with latex gloves and curated exhibitions. No, this is something older, more visceral. Its cover is made of something that looks like leather but isn't. It pulses faintly. It remembers touch. When you open it, the pages stick together, not from age, but from coagulation. They bled once, and they might still. Single inscription inside reads, "The first Enuma Elish was not written on clay, it was written on skin. You do not want to know what kind, and yet you turn the first page. The script curls and smears as if alive, each glyph moving at the corner of your eye. The text is in Akkadian, yes, but older than any preserved variant. Sharper, hungrier. The familiar line is there but changed. When on high the heavens had not been named. No. In this version it reads, when on high the heavens had not yet screamed. Already, the text has diverged. This isn't translation, it's revelation. What was once creation myth is now liturgical autopsy. Each stanza seems to describe not a divine victory, but a dissection. Marduk did not merely slay Tiamat. He entered her, cut through realms of consciousness, found languages not yet spoken, and used them to reshape the firmament. In this version, the gods did not cheer him. They cowered, and one line keeps recurring. A refrain scratched in red ink that has never dried. The sky is stitched with her veins. As you read, the words imprint behind your eyes. You begin to feel them in your tongue, in your pulse. The sensation is not of reading, but of being read. Each line sees deeper into you, weighs your worth, and then a whisper from the book. You were there. The notion is absurd, and yet your hands shake in rhythm with the lines. Some scholars believe this version of the Enuma Elish is the original, known only to a secret branch of temple priests exiled before the rise of Babylon's golden age. They were called the suturers. Their task was to mend the heavens each night, so the wound of Tiamat would not reopen. They failed. A page near the center is soaked through, entirely, red as if dipped in sacrifice. The script is illegible, not because of damage, but because it has no symbols, only impressions like fossilized screams pressed into hide. The book moans when you turn it. A voice, your voice and not, reads aloud without breath. Creation is an ongoing surgery. Marduk is not finished cutting. The world is not healed. The forbidden ritual tied to this version of the text was never meant to be read aloud. It was meant to be sung backwards during lunar eclipses, using vowels only found in dreams. The only recorded attempt ended in a collapse of the speaker's jaw, described in a single sentence by a Babylonian medic. His tongue tried to flee his mouth. You run your fingers along the book's final page. It feels warm, and then it breathes only once. But enough. A question, never answered in theology, now presses forward, shivering in your spine. Did Marduk create the world to save the gods, or to trap her voice in it forever? Is the sky not heaven, but a prison, and if the pages of this book still bleed, whose blood fuels them? Yours? hers or his. You close the book, but your fingers are no longer dry. The red seeps into your skin, and as it does, you understand. You haven't been reading the Enuma Elish. You've been finishing it. Your hands still ache from the book. The red hasn't dried. The glyphs beneath your skin haven't faded, but they've stopped bleeding. For now, ahead of you lies a chamber not carved but folded. The stone walls warped like paper pressed by tremendous heat and time. There is no ceiling, only dark above, and yet something watches. At the center of the chamber, half buried in dust and regret, lies a broken disk of black limestone, a covenant, but not the one you know. It bears 12 radial lines, one severed. At each point, the faint trace of a divine sigil glows in slow intervals, but only one is familiar. Marduk's, a spiral of sword and flame embedded at the fourth position. This is not a tablet of worship. It is an agreement, and it names 11 other gods. Not Anu, not Enlil, not Ea. These names are erased, intentionally. One segment is missing entirely. A chunk shattered, removed. The stone around it bears the mark of claw or chisel. No, desperation. As if someone tried to erase the pact itself. You place your hand upon it. The stone trembles, and then you hear it. Not aloud, but in memory. In marrow, a chant. Not the kind uttered by priests. This is deeper. Political. Cosmic. Transactional. He shall bear the name. We shall bear the cost. 1 God to slay the womb. 11 to seal the scream. The whisper comes with no source, but the implications settle like smoke in your lungs. Marduk did not act alone. He was authorized. The victory over Tiamat, the myth so long told as solitary conquest, was in truth a collaboration, a divine assassination. 11 gods chose him to be their blade. But in exchange they surrendered something unspeakable, and that unspeakable thing under was memory. This explains so much. Why older gods faded, why their altars crumbled, why entire cities dedicated to them were razed by their own worshippers. Tiu was part of the price. The forbidden belief is clear. To contain chaos, the gods struck a bargain to name Marduk the victor, and then vanish from the narrative, erased not by enemies, but by consensus. But one of them refused. That's what the broken segment implies, the missing 12th sign. A rebellion within the council, a voice that could not consent to matricide on a cosmic scale. Some call her Nin-Hursag, others Tashmitu. Still others suggest the 12th was not a god at all, but the last piece of Tiamat, hidden in a form the other gods could not detect. The theological mystery here is unnerving. Is divinity defined by action or by agreement? If a god kills with consensus, is it holiness or politics? And if Marduk was elevated by pact, not by power, then he is not a god in essence, but a contract, and contracts break. Beneath the disk, you find an engraving, scratched by a shaking, hand in cuneiform so jagged it looks like it was carved with a bone. The pact was made to last 6,000 years. It expires soon. You run calculations in your head. The Enuma Elish was composed around 1100 BCE. The pact, if made earlier, likely, began with Eridu's fall. Do the math. We are near the end. The seal weakens. The old gods, erased, begin to seep back through ruins and rites and dreams, and Marduk, he may no longer want to hold the knife. He may want to return to what he was built to be. And you who read, who remember, who wander, may be part of the new vote. A groan shakes the chamber, not from stone, from beneath it. You step back. The packed disc glows once, then cracks, perfectly down the center. From the fracture, a faint light emerges, not bright, not holy, but familiar. The color of first blood. The crack in the disc doesn't stop spreading. It hisses, like steam forced through bone. But it isn't heat that escapes. It's language. old and raw, coiling around your ears in syllables no human mouth was designed to shape. The sound enters you sideways. It is not the roar of gods. It is something older, a groan from beneath the boundaries. You kneel by the broken stone, uncertain if it split from age from your touch, or because something underneath has begun to rise. You peer closer. Beneath the fractured disc is a carved relief, an image long hidden by dust and packed binding stone. It is not a face, it is a mouth. Vast, circular, ringed with spines. And inside, that open maw teeth, thousands of them, some human-shaped, others bestial, and some still growing. At first you think it a symbolic rendering, chaos represented as hunger. But the edges of the carving are moist, fresh. This is no relic. It's a wound, one that never closed. This forgotten chamber is not a tomb. It's a root cellar for something far more ancient than any ziggurat, something buried alive. Something with a name no longer spoken, not even in reversed prayers. You run your fingers near the carving, and the teeth move. A slight twitch, like roots shifting beneath soil. The stone breathes not as a rock, but as flesh. The forbidden belief, whispered by outcast scribes, becomes suddenly real. Tiamat is not dead. She was only torn, scattered, not slain. And her pieces, the organs of chaos, were not destroyed but reused. Bound into the sky, pressed into stars, disguised as constellations and logic. But the teeth, they were hidden beneath. The belief goes further, into madness, that Marduk did not merely kill her, he fed on her. The original priests of Babylon wore necklaces of fossilized teeth claiming they were relics of the goddess's truth. Her chaotic power was, they said, infectious. Just touching a fragment could warp the mind. One such fragment, black and sharp like glass chewed into blade, was found in 1899 by a British dig team. Every member of the team went missing within 2 weeks. Only one journal entry was recovered. It read, "The tooth dreams when we sleep. It is still growing. It wants back in." The theological mystery becomes unavoidable. Can chaos regenerate through memory? If chaos is not a person, but a pattern, an eternal spiral of uncreation, then it cannot die, only be delayed, and we, with every recounting of Marduk's triumph, give it shape again. Because you cannot remember the slaying of a god without also reviving the shape of what was slain. The teeth twitch again, and from the wall, no, from the vein of the stone, you hear scratching. Not fingernails, not claws. Teeth, grinding, gnawing, pushing. They are not trying to escape. They are trying to return to her mouth, to the body, to the scream. And then you see it etched above the mouth, not in ancient script but in red smears as if made recently, is a single word in Babylonian phonetics, idu. It grows. You feel it in your bones, in the hidden spaces of your jaw, in your dreams last night, where you were swallowed again and again, waking with the taste of brine and betrayal. And now, perhaps the worst part. You want to remember. You want to remember her face. Not Marduk's sanitized myth, not the golden god with solar flares and war chants, but the mother who wept stars and bore silence. Because if her mouth still waits, you may already be inside it. You surface barely, out from the root-veined vault of teeth and betrayal, out from the breathless depths of growing chaos. You don't remember the climb, only that it was steep, and the walls whispered your own name back to you. But now, you find yourself before a temple, one still standing. Its silhouette cuts the sky like a blade sunk deep into the spine of the world. Moonlight clings to it, reluctant to fall elsewhere. This temple was once called Temenanki, the house of the foundation of heaven and earth, the ziggurat of Marduk, Babylon's crown. But the version you see now is not the one etched into tourist replicas or UNESCO dig reports. This one is unfinished. Its stones are cracked, rearranged and reassembled in angles that should not hold. Each level spirals rather than stacks. A spiral not upward, but inward. And coiled around its base, chiseled in obsidian relief, is a beast. Not allegorical, not mythical. Witnessed, the Mushhushu. You know the name, Sumerian for furious snake, though the translations never capture. The dread. A dragon serpent with lion's claws, eagle's talons, a serpent's tail, and a gaze that was never carved, but always there. It is Marduk's herald, his sigil. But the stories were wrong. They said it was his pet. What if it was his jailer? You step closer. The carving twists as you move, not in structure but in perception. The eye of the dragon, half-lidded and ringed in faded lapis lazuli, follows. Not artist's trick, but living geometry. According to forbidden fragments from the shattered library of Kutha, the Mushhushu was not a beast of war but a guardian of memory. Its task was to stand vigil at all temples dedicated to Marduk, not to ward off enemies, but to watch the god himself, to ensure he did not forget what he had done, to remind him of what he was made to kill. And now, the most disturbing part of the carving, a third eye, hidden beneath a fold of scale just above the snout, visible only when you lean close enough to hear the stone breathe. This third eye is not blind. It glows, dimly, blue-black, pulsing in time with something below your feet. Old temple records mention this detail only in suppressed addenda. The third eye of the Mushhushu is said to open during eclipses, and only then can the beast speak with the dead sky. You look up, no eclipse, but the moon feels absent nonetheless. The theological mystery here is subtle, but devastating. Is worship surveillance? If a god must be watched, kept in line by his own creature, then where does divinity end and imprisonment begin? What if Marduk was not only the killer of chaos, but the prisoner of its memory? And what if the Mushhushu is not his beast, but his mirror? You reach out to touch the dragon's third eye. The stone is cold, then hot, then wet, and you hear it. He is awake, but not whole. He sees, but not what is true. Speak his name again, and the eye opens within you. You recoil, but the eye closes on its own, and the night shudders slightly. You do not notice at first the movement around the temple. Not shadows, not wind. Faces, carved into the walls, newly etched. Watching, your face among them. No mouth, just eyes. You've been recorded, not in photo, not in word, in stone. The Mushhushu knows your scent now. It has catalogued your fear. And as you step back, preparing to flee, the dragon's tongue flickers, not in sculpture but in sound. A hiss, uttered in syllables older than Babel. You opened the page. You tasted the ash. You followed the pact. Now, you carry the key. The temple breathes behind you, and the dragon watches. Not for Marduk this time, but for you. The road away from the temple is not a road. It is a narrowing thought, a compression of time and space and self. The dust you walk upon feels memorized, not trodden. Your footsteps no longer make sound, only meaning. And in this silence you hear a voice, old, cracked, and layered with the weight of coal and incense and grief. Not from this time, not from this land, it is German. Kommt nicht zu herrschen. He does not come to rule. Kommt zu fressen. He comes to devour. You are hearing the final recording of a man erased from history, Friedrich Holzmeier, an occultist, mystic, and forgotten theosophist who vanished in 1894 after an expedition to the crumbling ruins of ancient Kish. He reappeared 6 months later, naked, starved, and with pupils dilated into full black. They called him mad. They called him prophet. And then they burned his writings. But one survived, buried in the private archives of an Austrian monastery under the title Der Prophet der Hohlen Flamme. The prophet of the hollow flame in it. He describes visions, searing, circular, devouring. of a god made not of fire, but of absence, where fire used to be, a flame so hollow it reversed light. He called it Der letzte Name von Marduk, the final name of Marduk, not spoken, not written, but understood. He claimed that Marduk had begun to eat himself, consuming the myth that held him, devouring his own history, until he became not god of creation, but god of forgetting. The flame, he described, gave no warmth, only a perfect ring of black heat that erased memory, melted scripture, silenced tongues. Holzmeier built a shrine to this god, not a temple, but a circle of unlit torches arranged around a pit of charred stone. Witnesses who entered claimed time fractured. One aged 20 years in an hour. One regressed into childhood muttering the reversed 50 names in a fetal curl. One simply vanished, leaving only teeth behind. The hollow flame is not metaphor. It burns. What holds you together? You walk now unknowingly into the shape of Holzmeier's vision. The land around you becomes symmetrical. 12 torches. One pit, but no flame. And yet you see it. Or rather, you see what it takes. The memory of your mother's voice. Gone. Your earliest fear, blunted. Your name, spoken in your own head. Faint. Slipping. This is not death. It is divine erosion. And at the center of the pit, lying in perfect stillness, is a fragment of obsidian carved into a spiral. You reach for it. You don't remember how. The stone is cold. Then, very, very loud. It sings, but not in pitch, in meaning. It sings of a god who was weapon first, worshipped only as a relic of victory. A god so defined by conquest that, once the enemy was gone, he began to eat the world to stay relevant. And now, the deepest heresy of Holzmeier's belief, Marduk is not returning. He never left. He's just forgotten himself. And in that forgetting, he's becoming something else. The hollow flame is the wound of identity, the ring left behind when a god no longer recognizes his own face. You hold the obsidian spiral tighter, and then you remember Holzmeier's final words, scratched into his own arm before he disappeared a second and final time. If you feel the warmth, it is too late. If you feel the silence, run. If you feel nothing, welcome him. You drop the spiral, but it does not hit the ground. It floats, burning without fire, and from every torch in the circle, a soft, hollow glow begins. The pit opens, and you realize, this is not prophecy. This is memory catching up. You do not descend into Babylon. You are drawn. The hollow flame behind you pulses once, soundless, hungry, and then collapses into itself like a thought forgotten mid-prayer. The torches extinguish. The obsidian spiral crumbles into soot, and the world shifts. Not the ground, not the wind, but reality's alignment. The way light bends, the way direction feels. You blink, and suddenly you are walking through what should not exist. Babylon. Not the museum relic, not the tourist ruin. The real one, alive, breathing, and deeply, utterly wrong. There are no people, no sky. Just ziggurats that flicker like candle flames, walls that loop back on themselves, streets that lead not to gates, but to memory pits, squares filled with sand that murmurs forgotten names. Here, history is not a past. It is a pulse. Beneath, your feet, the bricks breathe rhythmically. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. The street signs whisper. The columns lean as if listening. Somewhere, a bell rings, but the sound curves sideways, never arriving in full. You pass a fresco. Its paint is still wet. It depicts the creation of the world. Marduk slicing Tiamat in two, lifting the halves to form heaven and earth. You've seen it before, reproduced, in textbooks, but here the image is still changing. Tiamat turns her head. She sees the blade. She does not fight. She weeps, and from her tears, Babylon blooms. The fresco bubbles, its lines bending, melting, and then reforms. Marduk now stands, above the city, but his face is gone, smoothed over, a blank shape with eyes that remain open. Beneath the fresco, someone knows something, has carved a phrase into the stone in a hand you recognize now as your own. The city did not fall. It was swallowed. You move forward. The temples are intact, but inverted. Their spires point downward into the earth. You realize the city is folded inward, a spiral of stones and oaths and lost names. This is not Babylon the capital. This is Babylon the heart, and it never stopped beating. There is one tower still lit, the Isagila, Marduk's sanctuary. But inside, no priests, no idols, only a table. Upon it, a model of the universe, made of ash and gold thread. But you notice something missing. Chaos. No Tiamat. No Sia. Only a flat, perfect order. A reality without friction. You realize the city is not alive. It is not preserved. It is sustained. Held in place by Marduk's need to keep forgetting. A loop of victory that must replay endlessly to suppress what cannot be destroyed. You kneel, and beneath the altar you find a door, unmarked, smooth as glass, whispering faintly. You open it. A stair spirals downward, always downward. With each step, Babylon above you breathes deeper, louder, until the sound is no longer breath, but heartbeat. And then, something calls your name. Not in speech, in pulse. Though, city knows you, because you've read, because you've spoken, because you've remembered what you were never meant to. You are now part of its circulatory system, a red cell in its mythic flow. And the question burns within you. Was Babylon built to honor Marduk? Or was it built to contain him, to keep him asleep beneath the memory of his own triumph? But the heartbeat grows louder, and the tower overhead trembles. Single drop of gold falls from the ceiling, lands on your hand. It burns, not your flesh, but your ability to forget. You now remember every whispered name, every reversed title, every scream cut from the official myths. You have reached the chamber where the city's heart is housed, and you are not alone. The chamber pulses. You feel it before you see it. A steady throb like a massive drum struck somewhere outside time. It moves through your ribs, your spine, your teeth. Not a sound, a pressure of remembering. And there it lies. At the center of the room, not an altar, not a throne, but a crater, smooth, glass-lined, perfectly round, as if something enormous and hot had once struck here, or been born here, or been killed. You step toward the edge, and inscribed along the crater's rim are marks, etched in a language no one speaks aloud. Not Sumerian, not Akkadian, not divine. The glyphs are emotion-bound, metaphysical. Each one vibrates as if it carries a memory of something that should not have happened. This was not the site of Marduk's triumph. This is something else. Your eyes adjust, and you see it. In the very center of the crater, suspended like ash caught in still water, is a figure. Not Tiamat, not Marduk, but both or neither. An entity, twisted in motion, its body endlessly trying to become something singular, and failing. One moment a dragon, another a flame, a woman, a wound, a sword, all at once and none enduring. It is not dead. It is paused. A pocket of narrative frozen because it cannot be explained, and on the far wall burned into the basalt in deliberate, defiant strokes is a single phrase repeated over and over in countless scripts. He killed her twice. He killed her twice. He killed her twice. The heresy strikes like thunder. No myth ever mentions a second slaying. No version of the Enuma Elish tells what happened after Marduk created the world. But a fragment found in a Jordanian cave, known only to a handful of forbidden scholars, suggests a forgotten rite, a hidden event, a second killing. This is the forbidden belief, that after crafting the heavens from Tiamat's broken form, Marduk felt something stir, something unfinished. Not her vengeance, not her remnants, but her reflection, The first Tiamat was chaos incarnate. The second was memory of chaos, and memory cannot be slain with a sword. So Marduk did not fight her, he sealed her. Here, in this crater of unreconciled truth. And now you realize what this place truly is. A prison, not for gods, not for demons, but for a contradiction. A truth that would collapse the entire divine structure if ever spoken aloud. That creation was not a victory, but a cover-up. The theological mystery unravels in your chest. If he killed her again, what did he become? The second killing was not against a body, it was against meaning. The figure in the crater begins to stir, just slightly, and you, standing at the rim, holding the weight of this knowledge in your hands, know what's next. You've read too much, spoken too much, listened too well. You have completed, unknowingly, the ritual of the second witness, the one foretold in ash script found beneath the ruins of Uruk. The one who speaks the echo shall become the mouth of silence, and as the crater glows, the figure begins to resolve. The forms collapse inward. Dragon fades, wound tightens, and all that remains is a mirror. You stare into it. It does not reflect you. It reflects the cost of knowing. And now you understand. He killed her twice, and the second time, he became her. The mirror does not vanish. It simply refuses to be looked at again. You step away, not because you want to, but because something else now compels you. A scent, a pull, a pressure in the skull like a name trying to form just behind your eyes. Corridor opens in the wall behind the crater, smooth, lightless, impossibly narrow. The stone here does not breathe nor groan. It merely records. This is no temple. This is an archive, but not one built to preserve memory. This one was made to bury it. The walls are lined with shelves of unmarked tablets, scrolls, parchment folded into brass boxes, sinew-bound vellum stitched, with languages that should not survive. This is the Shadow Archive, the final burial ground for gods deemed too dangerous to remember. The names of those whose cults had no grave, only redactions. This is where divinity is exiled, and here Marduk's name appears again. But not as a god, as a threat. You touch a shelf of forbidden doctrine, and the tablets hum beneath your fingers. Unreadable, but not undecipherable. Your breath fogs slightly. Each object holds heat, though no light, like cinders waiting for air. You pass a sealed cabinet, its face carved with divine graffiti. Winged bulls crying black ichor, eyes gouged from celestial, diagrams, halos cut in half, symbols meant not to damn but to erase. And then you see it. A scroll, suspended in crystal, floating. Its casing bears no inscription, only a single spiraled symbol etched from within. A wound shaped like an eye. The same glyph from the crater. You, do not break the glass, you whisper, and it opens. The scroll unfurls mid-air, its ink still fresh, its language your own. Not ancient, not dead. The story it tells is not mythic. It's historical. It recounts events you've lived, dreams you've forgotten, words you've spoken to the dark when you thought no one listened. You realize you were never just a witness. You were written into the exile, a hidden name, a backup archive, a living scroll. The heretical claim within this final text is staggering. The gods did not exile Marduk, he exiled himself. After the second killing, he saw what he had become. Not the god of victory, not the savior of the pantheon, but the architect of eternal repression. He had severed chaos not to protect creation, but to rule it silently, to keep the world in his image, and to prevent her return. But something inside him rebelled. Not guilt, not shame, recognition, and so he fled into myth, into name, into us. Each retelling of the Enuma Elish became a link in the chain. Each child's storybook with simplified monsters and heroic gods. Another shackle, another padlock, but exile is not death. It is conscious forgetting. And somewhere, even now, he waits, not asleep, not dead, just unspoken. You walk deeper into the archive. You find the final room. A single pedestal. Upon it, a broken crown. Not jeweled, not golden, just charred wood. Burnt through the center, marked by 3 claw marks, the kind that match no beast from history. The walls around the crown bear one line repeated in dozens of dialects spiraling inward. He asked us to forget, so he could forget himself. But you did not forget. You turned the pages, you traced the ash, you looked into the crater, and now, he remembers. A slow, heavy exhale seeps through the archive's deepest stones. The light dims, but not from outside, from within the ink. Marduk's exile is ending, and his shape is no longer divine. It is something waiting to be rewritten. You descend once more. But this is no longer a journey through place. It is a passage through scripture. Walls vanish, form blurs. You walk now through language itself, sentences writ in flame, grammar scrawled on air, the laws of narrative pulled apart like frayed linen. And at the center of it all, held in absolute stillness, is a single manuscript. No pages, no ink, just shape, bound in nothing, floating. You approach, though you don't remember moving. The manuscript turns to face you. Yes, it turns as though it has a front, a will, an awareness. Its pages begin to open, not by hand, but by proximity. It knows you. It remembers you. Each page holds only one word, and that word changes every time your mind tries to grasp it. Sometimes it reads Marduk, other times, uncreation, sometimes, me, and once, chillingly, you. This is not a book, it is a name, and it does not reveal information, it consumes it. It feeds on context, on cohesion, on history. The final heretical truth is now undeniable. The god Marduk is no longer a god. He is a linguistic event, a looped definition that erases everything around it in order to maintain the illusion of continuity. A black hole of theology dressed in divine language. He does not govern, he undoes. Every myth he touches becomes hollow. Every truth that bears his name begins to fracture, and worst of all, he does not stop. The reversed 50 names? They're not just descriptors. They are filters. Spells to delay the collapse, masks to distract from the raw syllable at the center of it all. The first name. The name he used to kill. The name she whispered back as she died. And it is written, here, now, at the core of the final page. You try to look. You try not to. You feel the narrative tightening, sentence by sentence. And then it speaks. Not in voice, not in breath, but in reversal. This is the name that wrote the sky and tore it into scriptures. This is the word that invented God so it would not be alone. This is the silence that burns memory. This is the page that devours the hand that turns it. And you've already turned it. The manuscript begins to dissolve, not into ash, not into light, but into absence. And from that absence, something unfolds. Not Marduk, not Tiamat, both. Their story was never about war. It was a cycle, slayer and slain, memory and silence, order and the impulse that undoes it. You have reached the final word, and that word is nothing. The page stares blankly back at you. But your name is gone. The gods are gone. Only the whisper remains. To know him is to disappear. To speak him is to become the echo. To remember him is to unwrite the self. The manuscript closes, not by your will, but because you have been read. You feel your outline blurring, not your body, your meaning. The walls melt, the archive fades, and The last thing you hear is the whisper of pages turning behind you that no longer contain you. You are now part of the manuscript. You are the footnote at the edge of godhood. The devourer has devoured the reader. There is no sky, only parchment. Endless, pulsing, breathing parchment, stained with meanings you no longer understand. You drift between them, not as a body, not even as a thought, but as ink without intent, a smear of memory across the vast unwritten. This is not death. This is context collapse. You were a witness. You were a reader. You were the second voice, the archivist, the curious one who whispered where silence was sworn. And for that, the manuscript took you in. But within its margins, something remains. A flicker, a presence. The memory of the god who killed chaos. The first and final contradiction, his exile is unfinished. His fire is hollow. His myth survives only through forgetting. But you, fragmented, echoing, drifting between divine footnotes, still remember. And in that remembering, the spiral begins again. Far above, perhaps in another temple, or in the mind of a child holding a storybook, a page flutters, a name reappears, Marduk. But it is not alone this time, because you are there too, as a whisper at the end of every line, as a curl at the edge of the scroll, as the shadow behind the reader's eyes. The archive is never truly closed. It simply turns to the next seeker. And so if you, who have read this far, feel something stirring at the back of your tongue, something like a name, something like a wound, something like an invitation, know this. This was not a story, it was a summoning, and Marduk remembers now. He waits for the next voice, the next reader, the next name to be unspoken. Now whisper with me as the last line fades. If your candle hasn't gone out yet, you might be ready for the next god.